Toxic people thrive on reaction. Their power isn't real, it's borrowed from your attention, your anger, your emotional outbursts. They prod and provoke not because they are strong, but because they understand human weakness. They exploit impulsiveness, so your first move, the most important one, is silence. Not passive silence, strategic silence. You watch, you observe, and you learn. You don't flinch, you don't defend, and you don't explain. Because explanation gives them material, every word you throw out becomes a tool they twist. So you give them nothing, not because you're afraid, but because you're calculating. You're writing a play they don't know they're in. The moment you remove your emotion, you remove their oxygen. While they're busy trying to provoke you, they don't realize you're already analyzing their patterns. Their ego blinds them. They think they're winning because you're quiet. What they don't know is that you're memorizing everything, every manipulation, every lie, every weakness disguised as aggression. It's all being filed. You're preparing your strategy not through attack, but through understanding. That's how you take power, not by force, but by control. You become the one thing they can't anticipate. Unshaken, they expect resistance. They expect arguments. They want chaos. You give them precision. You move like a shadow, not out of fear, but with intention. They want to play a loud game. You operate in silence. That's where your power is. You don't match their volume. You master the rhythm. You don't fall into their cycle. You create your own. You are not reacting to them. They are now reacting to your stillness, your unpredictability, your calm. And when the moment comes, you strike, not with emotion, but with precision. You've studied long enough to know exactly where the fault lines are. You dismantle their influence without warning, without noise, and without ever stooping to their level. That's not mercy, that's strategy. Toxic people are prisoners of their own ego. Their need to be seen, admired, feared, it consumes them. It makes them predictable. That predictability is their weakness, and it's your greatest weapon. They want attention, so you give them just enough to keep them looking in the wrong direction. You feed their illusion while quietly building your position. The more they believe they're in control, the more control you actually have. You let them talk, let them posture, let them believe they're steps ahead, all while you're standing behind them, 3 moves deeper into the game. Ego blinds them. It makes them underestimate you. That's the opening. You don't fight their ego head-on. You weaponize it. You nod when they expect resistance. You agree when they look for conflict. You praise when they seek dominance. All of it is calculated. Every compliment is a trap. Every moment of false submission is a setup. You don't need to destroy their pride. You let it destroy them. Their need to be right will make them loud. Their obsession with power will make them reckless. And while they're busy putting on a show, you're constructing their downfall behind the curtain. This isn't flattery. It's manipulation. Strategic manipulation. You're not appealing to their humanity. You're controlling their vanity. They want to be admired, so you make yourself appear beneath them. You let them feel superior until they lower their guard, until they speak too freely, until they trust you with too much. Then you pull the ground out from under them, not with force, with timing, precision, understanding. Most people try to confront toxicity directly. They yell, they fight, they try to expose, but exposure means chaos. Real power is silent, subtle. It bends the toxic person towards self-destruction while you remain untouched. By the time they realize what's happened, they've already set fire to their own image, believing the whole time that they were untouchable. That's not luck. That's calculated dominance. Toxic people win when you play their game. They draw you in with chaos, with mind games, with emotional warfare, and the second you respond on their terms, you've already lost. The battlefield belongs to whoever sets the rules. That's why you never let them dictate the environment. You shift the frame, you redefine the space, you create the conditions where their tactics no longer work. They want to corner you emotionally, so you create distance. They want to provoke you into reaction, so you build structure. They want to overwhelm, so you operate with clarity and focus. You become untouchable not because you're louder or more aggressive, but because you're the one writing the rules of engagement. Toxic people thrive in confusion. They manipulate through distraction and disruption. Their strength lies in unpredictability, in drama, in your inability to predict their next move, so you create a system, something they can't penetrate. You decide the timing, the tone, the pace of the conversation. You don't chase answers from them. You give them questions they're not prepared to answer. You don't let them hijack your attention. You control what gets a response and what doesn't. You build a wall of discipline they can't scale. They might scream louder. They might accuse more. They might try to bait you harder. Let them. Every time they reach, they reveal more. Every time they try to manipulate the moment, they expose their lack of control. You don't match their energy, you drain it. You make their tactics ineffective by making them irrelevant. You shift the context so thoroughly that the tools they once used become dead weight. They become confused, frustrated, unstable. And when they lose their footing, that's when you advance, not emotionally, but strategically. In a game they don't understand, with rules they didn't write, and in an environment they can't control, toxic people collapse under the weight of their own strategy. And not because you overpowered them, but because you out-positioned them. You controlled the arena, and that's where power lives. Words are the favorite weapon of toxic people, but they are also their greatest weakness. They use language to twist, provoke, manipulate, and confuse. They rely on the noise. They rely on you speaking without thinking, defending without direction. That's why silence is more dangerous than a scream. That's why listening with a still face is more powerful than shouting with emotion. When you speak less, you reveal less. You deny them ammunition. You control the tempo. You let them expose themselves through their own words, while you remain unreadable. Toxic people cannot handle being unseen or unheard. The moment you stop reacting, they lose their grip. The moment you speak with calm precision, their chaos looks childish. They feed off confusion, and when your language becomes deliberate, short, exact, unshaken, they lose ground. You make them guess. You force them into over-explaining. You let their own voice paint them into a corner. Every word they drop becomes a thread they can't pull back. Meanwhile, your silence becomes the space where you regain leverage. You observe more when you speak less. You catch the shift in their tone, the pattern in their manipulation, the way they circle back to control the conversation. You don't interrupt. You let them fill the silence. You let them get comfortable. Then, when you do speak, it's with clarity so sharp it cuts through the fog they built. You don't respond to emotion with emotion. You don't rise to bait. You don't let them direct the dialogue. You are choosing your words like weapons, measured and intentional. Speaking less doesn't mean being passive. It means being calculated. It means resisting the urge to argue just because they want an argument. It means protecting your power by not throwing it away in emotional reactions. The less you say, the more they reveal. The quieter you become, the more control you gain. In every interaction, your restraint becomes the sword they can't see coming. You are not silent out of weakness. You are silent because you are watching everything and wasting nothing. Toxic people survive on dependency. They need your energy, your validation, your need for closure or approval to maintain control. The second you no longer need anything from them, they lose their grip entirely. This is not just about walking away. It's about detaching on every level. Mentally, emotionally, psychologically, you become immune to their influence when you stop craving anything they can give or withhold. No apology, no explanation, no recognition. They become irrelevant the moment their presence no longer affects your peace. Detachment is power. Not the cold shoulder, not passive aggression, but the internal understanding that your value is not connected to their opinion. You are not seeking revenge. You are not seeking to be understood. You are seeking nothing. That emptiness is where strength lies. When you don't respond, when you don't chase, when you don't explain yourself to someone who never listened in the first place, you are not losing a battle. You are ending a game they thought they controlled. Most people stay locked in toxic cycles because they believe there's something left to win. An argument, respect, redemption. But with toxic people, the game is designed so you never win. The moment you realize that, you stop playing. You remove your attention, your time, your reaction. They shout into silence. They provoke an absence. They try to pull strings that are no longer connected. That's how you win. Not by fighting harder, but by refusing to fight at all. This kind of power doesn't make noise. It doesn't announce its departure. It simply moves on, and in doing so, leaves them powerless. You control the ending by no longer needing anything from the story. They can smear, talk, dramatize, manipulate. But without your energy, it all collapses into dust. You don't have to expose them. You don't have to destroy them. You only have to become unaffected. That is the move they never expect. The one they can't answer. You rise when you need nothing from people who feed on need. You ascend when you walk with nothing to prove, nothing to defend, and nothing to retrieve. Outsmarting toxic people isn't about shouting louder, hitting harder, or proving anything to anyone. It's about stepping back and seeing the entire game for what it is: manipulation, distraction, control. And then refusing to play by those rules. You rise by observing without reacting, by speaking with precision, by creating distance where they want entanglement. You rise by making their tactics useless and their power irrelevant. In silence, you disarm them. In strategy, you surpass them. And in detachment, you end their influence completely. This isn't about revenge. It's about dominance through discipline. You don't defeat toxic people by becoming like them. You defeat them by becoming untouchable.